I've been sick for a week and it won't stop raining. And if that's not depressing enough, today I'm going to steal my own job with Cursor AI. Alright, let's go. No matter what your opinion is of AI, I think it's important to stay up to date with the progression of this technology, and the easiest way to do that is to use these tools to make something. So today we're going to do just that. We're going to use AI to build a tool that has practical application within my workflow as a product designer. Specifically, I want to build a color palette generator that will speed up the process for building color themes in design systems. Now, a few constraints for the project. We must rely on natural language AI tools for as much of the project as possible, but it's more about the concepts than any one specific tool, and I can't design anything beforehand. All features must be generated from AI in my code editor. I want to see how viable this stack is for rapid iteration, skipping the design step and styling after. Okay, so let's jump into this and I'll talk about my dev stack as I'm building. Okay, now that we have a new blank project created, the first thing that we're going to do is install our framework. I am going to use Astro with a mix of React. I'm relatively new to the Astro framework, but I've had a lot of fun playing around with it, so this is just a good excuse to learn a little bit more about this framework in the context of a real build. And I'm actually going to use a component library for this, so I don't have to build anything from scratch. And you can use this component library with a variety of frameworks. We're going to use Astro, so let's click on the installation instructions for this specifically. All right, back in Cursor, this is just a regular text editor, so let's open up our terminal and let's get Astro installed. Okay, now let's get React installed in our instance of Astro. And we're going to say yes to all of these questions. And we're going to add Tailwind for styling. Okay, we've got Tailwind installed. Now we're going to create a folder in source for managing our styles. And in that styles folder, we're going to create a global.css file. And we're going to copy over these for Tailwind, and we're also going to import Tailwind into our index. So let's just put it here in index, and then let's update this in our Astro config file for Tailwind here, and we have to resolve these URLs in our TypeScript. Go. Now we can initialize the component library that we're using back here in the terminal. Oh, we did something wrong. Save that. Let's try again. Okay, we just forgot to save a file. And yes, to CSS variables. Okay, so that is a successful install so far. Let's double check. Let's go to our terminal and launch the server using npm run dev. Okay, I know this doesn't look pretty, but this is just the base template for creating a new instance of Astro, and we've got everything integrated into this project that we're going to need to start creating something with AI. Now let's just quickly do a commit to GitHub since we have everything installed. Okay, we've committed to GitHub, and let's just go back to double check that everything is working correctly so that we can do some version control as we're creating new features. All right, so we are all set up now. Let's start building. Okay, so we're not going to build everything from scratch directly in Cursor. We're going to use Claude AI to give us a bit of a head start on actually creating this tool. So I've written a very quick prompt. I didn't spend any time thinking about this. I just tried to use conversational and natural language to tell Claude AI the kind of base state of the tool that I'm looking to create. So I want to create a simple app for generating a web color palette with OKLCH values. You should start with one field where you enter a hex color. When the hex color value is submitted, the app should generate a full web color palette with all shades and hues. Use Tailwind as a reference for the format of the web color palette. Okay, so let's submit this prompt with Claude AI and see what we get. Okay, it's looking pretty good so far. So let's read through what Claude AI has created for us. I'll create a simple React app that generates a web color palette with OKLCH values based on a single hex color input. We'll use Tailwind's color palette format as a reference for the output. Here's the implementation. Now, the awesome thing about Claude is that you have a preview of what the code generation looks like, and then you can also switch over and see the code itself. That's really great because you saw how difficult it was to get all of the necessary components installed into Cursor AI in order to get something like this running on your actual local machine. So Claude AI helps kind of skip that step for non-technical people of needing to install everything, the framework, components, and styles. Okay, so here's a breakdown of the main features. The user can input a hex color value. When the Generate Palette button is clicked, it creates a palette of 10 shades, 50 to 900 based on the input color. The palette is displayed in a grid format similar to Tailwind's color palette structure, and each color in the palette shows its shade number and OKLCH values. So let's see what that looks like. All right, so we are getting a result. It's not exactly what we're looking for, but that's part of using AI. You have to do some iterations. But it's functioning in browser here, so that's really exciting. Let's see the rest of the notes to see what we can change to improve this. To make this fully functional, you need to implement proper color conversions and refine this function to create a more accurate representation of the color, and consider adding errors. Okay, so let's check the code to see what that generate shades function is. So here's the function. And this is the algorithm to actually generate the shades. We can improve this. Okay, let's import this into Cursor and get a version of this running on our local. I'm going to actually ask this to convert it to an Astro component. Always say please to your AI overlords. All right, let's preview. Oh no, we broke it. Okay, maybe Claude doesn't like Astro components. That's okay. Let's copy this and see if we can't get it running on our local. If not, we can revert to a React component. React works within Astro as well. It's called an island. That's why Astro is so much fun to work with, because you're not limited to one framework. It's framework agnostic. Okay, in order to migrate this to our local, we need to break down which components are being imported into this color palette generator component. So we have an input, a button, and cards, and we have all of those available in the component library that we're using. So we can create a new color palette generator component and then import these into the project. In the components folder, we are going to create a new component called color palette generator.astro. And I use all caps because that's the standard syntax for when you're creating native Astro components. And let's copy all of this code. We're probably going to get a lot of errors when we copy this over, so bear with me. All right, it's not that bad. We have a few components that we need to import from our component library, so let's do that using the terminal and reference the documentation for our component library here. We need an input, so let's find that. Input, installation here. All right, we've got an input, and as you can see, that arrow went away, so let's do that for the rest of the components. So we have a button as well. Button. All right, that's installed correctly, and as you can see, the error is gone. And one more for a card. Okay, now we've got card installed. We still have a few errors here. These look like these are errors specific to not defining the types of these. So yep, this does not have any type. And I think we're into another area where you're kind of working in the blind. I'm having to manually migrate this into Cursor, and of course this wouldn't be a problem if you were generating everything in Cursor to begin with, but I'm just kind of showing the friction point of actually adopting this into your workflow and the amount of technical knowledge that you have to be able to use this at this state. So let's go ahead and fix these type errors. All right, so we've got those errors cleared out, and we've got one other error here. Null is not assignable to the string type hex color. Okay, let's see what the AI says to do. Okay, so this is a really great instance where the assistant is helping me do something that as a designer, not a developer, I wouldn't really know to do. We're returning back null, and this can't be null, so it needs to create another function that is checking whether or not this is a basically blank input, and then returning something to fill that, and it's going to return the value of black. It's a little bit confusing. Let's just apply it and see if we can't fix that error. Accept. Okay, so now we have a clean component in Cursor that we imported from Claude. There's no errors, but we have to check if it's working. So let's import this component into the home page, the index page. And I'm just tabbing through this, and it is recognizing that I am trying to import this automatically. You can see how quickly that's working. And now we have our field here. Oh, we have an error, but we at least got the front end functioning. What's going on? Ah, there's a post form happening here. Okay, I don't want to do this with a post method, so let's go back through and let's ask it to remove the post method and do this in a different way. So this is the first time where we're actually generating something within Cursor. So let's go find our post method. Okay, so we removed the post method, and now we have some new errors. Again, these type errors. Let's get those cleared. Okay, so it looks like we've cleared all of these errors. I do need to commit to GitHub, but let's make sure that we actually have something functional before we do that. Let's just rerun everything. Okay, we've got that form removed from the post method, and we have something returning. I know it doesn't look like much, but let's do a little bit of cleanup over our page just so that we can see more specifically what we're looking at. Okay, cool. Okay, so now let's see where all of our actual values are. They're just hidden because the styling. So let's fix that. There we go. All right, we are getting something. Okay, we're not seeing any colors here because we just have the placeholder color conversion. So let's work on that next. And actually, I want to remove this. Okay, I got that toolbar out of there. I always forget where that's at. Let's test this again. All right, so now we are seeing a palette being generated. We need to work on the color conversion so that we can actually see the palette. All right, so we're back in our color palette generator component. Let's see this function here. Okay, let's see if we can't get this color conversion working with just basic math first. Okay. Wow. That sucked. Okay. We have got it. That took me a very long time fighting with this color conversion, and then I just took a step back and simplified it. We do not have the color converting correctly. This should be a purple. It's looking more like a magenta, but our shades are correct. So let's commit a version of this, and then let's work on the actual color conversion. Okay, now we have a palette generated at least. We need to work on the color conversion. So let's do that. Yes! Okay, I am going to consider that a win. That is very close to the color that we're looking to use. Oh! Okay, I can see a problem here. Somewhere in the midst, we are generating the hex value here, and I can see that my actual imported hex value is not represented. Okay, now let's generate the rest of the palette, and then we can work on refining this a little bit more. So I believe that there's 17 colors, actual colors in here. Let's work on a little bit of styling changes here. All right, I want to generate all of the shades on a single row. Okay, I need to adjust the width of this. Okay. Okay, I like how this is looking, but I want to now try to generate all 17 hues. Ooh, there we go. So now the original color that we entered in its hex value appears in the appropriate hue row, and it remains as the correct hex value. Okay, we're getting really close now. So now when you enter the value, and a palette is generated, the original color is always included. So let's see, 320. Yep, and the hue row with the original color is always at the top. Very close. Okay, honestly, at this point, I would consider this a success, but I want to go a little bit further. Let's actually save this version because this is functioning as intended almost. Okay, so I want to take this one step further. I think that we need a color picker. Yes. I can't believe it's actually working. It's very satisfying when it works. It's very unsatisfying when it doesn't work. Okay. Okay, I do think that the lights need to be a little bit lighter. And the darks are a little too dark. We're still getting some blacks. The lights are lighter. Okay. No, I think I made the darks too dark. No, I think I made the darks too light. Okay, so there was an error that was making all of the additional hue rows still too dark at the darkest values, so I adjusted that, but now I think that the darks are too light. Okay. Okay, very usable. Do I go slightly lighter? Okay, I feel good about that. Okay, I can definitely see some areas where I can improve in terms of the functions that are creating the color conversion and generating the shades of the palette, but I'd consider this relatively successful at this stage. It took me longer than I intended, but I would consider this working. Okay, so there's one more step. In order to consider this an improvement in my current workflow, I need to be able to copy this into Figma and generate variables. So let's see if we can create a button that when you click, it copies to the clipboard in a JSON format, because I know that I can import a JSON format into Figma. Okay. That is working now. Okay, I think that this is relatively successful. There's one more thing that I want to change before we test this end to end, and that is to update the order of the hue rows. So I don't like that the original color is purple and then you're immediately jumping into red when that is much further in the degree of hue. So how do I change that? Okay, let's see if that did it. Okay, I think it worked. Let's test a different color though. Gray shouldn't be one of the color names. I need to ask ChatGPT something. It's really late to be asking ChatGPT something in this part of the process. Okay, let me just do this manually. I think that we are going to consider this a win. Let's open up Figma and let's test this end to end. Let's make it download a JSON file instead of copying it to the clipboard. All right. Okay, I consider this project now in a usable state. So let's test this end to end. We load the page and we can either enter a color or we can select it with our color picker. We generate a palette and then we can download that palette in a JSON file that we can then import into Figma. And all of those color styles are now available in our Figma document for us to use. As such. Okay, we're going to call it for tonight. Okay, in the future, I can definitely see some areas that we can improve, but that is good enough for a proof of concept of how we can use AI to build a functional tool. I will catch you guys next week. Peace.